Welcome to True Catholics TV, where we explore the fascinating and often bizarre chapters of Catholic history. Today, we're delving into one of the most controversial events in medieval Catholic history, the Cadaver Synod. Join us as we uncover the background, the trial, and the far-reaching implications of this dark episode. Discover how the Cadaver Synod shook the foundations of the Catholic Church and left a legacy that still resonates today. The Cadaver Synod, held in January 897 AD, is one of the most macabre events in the annals of medieval Catholic history. This posthumous trial of Pope Formosus by his successor, Pope Stephen VI, not only shocked contemporaries but also left a lasting theological and ecclesiastical impact. To understand the theological implications of the Cadaver Synod, one must delve into the background of the key figures involved, the canonical and sacramental issues raised, and the broader lessons for ecclesiastical authority and integrity. Background context. Pope Formosus' papacy, which was between 891 to 896, was fraught with political and ecclesiastical challenges. Initially appointed as Bishop of Porto, Formosus was excommunicated by Pope John VIII for alleged political machinations and ambition for the papacy. However, he was later reinstated and eventually ascended to the papal throne in 891 AD. His tenure was marked by his support for Arnulf of Carinthia against the powerful Spoletan family, a decision that would haunt his legacy. Stephen VI, a supporter of the Spoletan faction, succeeded Boniface VI, who had a brief and controversial papacy. Stephen VI's tenure was dominated by the desire to discredit his predecessors and solidify his position amidst a backdrop of intense political rivalry. The Cadaver Synod was the culmination of these efforts. In an unprecedented and grotesque spectacle, Pope Formosus' corpse was exhumed, dressed in papal vestments, and placed on a throne to face trial. A deacon was appointed to respond on behalf of the deceased pope. The charges against Formosus included violating canon law by transferring from the bishopric of Porto to Rome, perjury, and coveting the papacy. The Synod found Formosus guilty, nullified his acts as pope, and desecrated his body by stripping it of its vestments, mutilating the fingers used for blessings, and casting it into the Tiber River. Theological and ecclesiastical implications. The core theological issue of the Cadaver Synod was the alleged violation of canon law concerning the transfer of bishops. Canon law traditionally held that a bishop could not move from one see to another, a rule intended to preserve ecclesiastical order and prevent ambitious maneuvering. Formosus' transfer from Porto to Rome was thus deemed unlawful, raising questions about the legitimacy of his papacy and his subsequent actions. By annulling Formosus' ordinations, the Synod brought into question the validity of sacraments administered by those he had ordained. Catholic theology holds that the sacraments, particularly holy orders, confer an indelible spiritual character. The retroactive invalidation of Formosus' ordinations threatened to undermine the stability of sacramental theology, as it suggested that the efficacy of sacraments could be nullified by posthumous judgments, thereby unsettling the faithful and clergy alike. The trial of Formosus also posed a significant challenge to the notion of papal authority and infallibility. Papal infallibility, although formally defined much later at the First Vatican Council in 1870, has roots in the belief that the Pope, as the Vicar of Christ, possesses a unique authority to definitively pronounce on matters of faith and morals. The Cadaver Synod undermined this principle by suggesting that a pope's acts and legitimacy could be questioned and reversed by a successor, thus destabilizing the continuity and integrity of the papacy. The Cadaver Synod is a stark example of the extent to which political factions could manipulate ecclesiastical proceedings for secular gains. Stephen VI's actions were driven by the political rivalry between the supporters of Arnulf of Carinthia and the Spoletan faction. This manipulation highlighted the vulnerability of the papacy to external political pressures, compromising its spiritual and moral authority. Repercussions and condemnation of Cadaver Synod. Following Stephen VI's deposition and imprisonment, his successor, Pope Theodore II, convened a synod that annulled the Cadaver Synod's decisions and restored Formosa's honor. Pope John IX further condemned the Cadaver Synod, ordering its acts to be destroyed and prohibiting future trials of deceased persons. These actions were attempts to restore stability and confidence in the papacy and the Church's legal processes. The Cadaver Synod severely damaged the reputation of the papacy, exposing the extent of corruption and factionalism within the Church hierarchy. It underscored the need for reforms to curb the influence of secular politics on ecclesiastical affairs and to protect the sanctity and integrity of papal authority. Theological lessons from the action of the Cadaver Synod. The Synod underscored a fundamental Christian principle: respect for the deceased. The posthumous trial and desecration of Formosa's body were seen as violations of the dignity owed to the dead, reflecting a profound theological and moral failure. The Cadaver Synod highlighted the necessity for integrity and justice in church trials and proceedings. Ecclesiastical authority must be exercised with fairness, transparency, and respect for canonical and theological principles to maintain the Church's moral and spiritual credibility. The Cadaver Synod vividly illustrated the dangers of entangling political ambitions with religious authority. The Church's spiritual mission can be compromised when ecclesiastical decisions are driven by secular politics. The event emphasized the need for a clear demarcation between the temporal and spiritual realms to safeguard the Church's integrity. Conclusively, the Cadaver Synod remains a cautionary tale in the history of the Catholic Church, illustrating the extremes of political machinations within religious contexts and the enduring need for ecclesiastical reforms. Theologically, it challenged foundational principles of canon law, sacramental validity, and papal authority, leaving a legacy that influenced subsequent church policies and reforms. By reflecting on this dark chapter, the Church can draw valuable lessons about the importance of justice, integrity, and the proper exercise of ecclesiastical authority, ensuring that the spiritual mission of the Church remains untainted by the corrupting influences of secular power. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more insights. Thanks for watching. God's blessings, Amen.